Have you ever been fired? I have. And let me tell you, it felt like my world was ending. One day, I was a valued team member, hitting my targets, getting along with everyone. The next, I was packing my desk into a cardboard box, escorted out by security, with a generic "we're moving in a different direction" ringing in my ears. No warning, no real explanation, just gone. I spent the first few days in a daze. I replayed every conversation, every project, trying to figure out what I did wrong. The answer? Nothing. It was a classic case of corporate restructuring, and I was just a number on a spreadsheet. The humiliation was real. The anger was even realer. I felt powerless, disposable. I binge-watched shows, ate way too much ice cream, and sent out dozens of resumes into the void, getting nothing but automated rejection emails in return. It was bleak. But then, something inside me shifted. The anger started to turn into fuel. The feeling of being powerless made me want to take back control. I was tired of my fate being in someone else's hands. I thought about the job I'd just lost. I knew that industry inside and out. I knew their customers, their products, and most importantly, I knew their weaknesses. I saw the gaps they were missing, the customer complaints they were ignoring, the innovations they were too slow to adopt. And a crazy idea started to form in my head. What if I could do it better? What if, instead of begging for a seat at someone else's table, I built my own? It was terrifying. I had no savings to speak of, just a tiny severance check that wouldn't last long. My confidence was at an all-time low. Who was I to think I could compete with a massive corporation? But the desire to prove them wrong, to prove to myself that I was more than just a disposable employee, was stronger than the fear. I started small, really small. I'm talking about working from a corner of my tiny apartment, with a second-hand laptop and a whole lot of caffeine. I spent my days and nights researching, planning, and building. I called up old contacts, not to ask for a job, but to ask for their honest feedback on my new idea. To my surprise, people were supportive. They saw the same gaps in the market that I did. They were tired of the old way of doing things. That little spark of validation was all I needed. I poured every last bit of my energy and severance money into creating a prototype. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. It was a tangible representation of my refusal to be defeated. My first goal was to land just one client, just one person to believe in my vision. I focused on a very specific niche that my old company had always overlooked. They saw it as too small, not worth their time. I saw it as an opportunity. I crafted a personal pitch, highlighting how my solution was tailor-made for their unique problems the big guys didn't even know they had. I made cold calls. I sent emails. I got a lot of no's and even more silence. It was discouraging. There were days I almost gave up, thinking I'd made a huge mistake. But I remembered that feeling of being escorted out of the office, and it pushed me to make one more call, send one more email. And then, it happened. A small business owner, frustrated with the lack of options, agreed to a meeting. I practiced my pitch 100 times. I walked into that meeting with my heart pounding, but I spoke with a passion and conviction that you just can't fake. And they said yes. They became my first client. That first yes changed everything. It was proof of concept. Suddenly, my crazy idea didn't seem so crazy anymore. I worked tirelessly for that first client, going above and beyond to deliver results. I wanted to make them so happy that they'd have no choice but to tell everyone they knew. And they did. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, especially when you're the new underdog on the block. One client turned into 2, then 5, then 10. I was still working from my apartment, but now the caffeine was fueled by excitement, not desperation. The long hours didn't feel like a chore. They felt like I was building my own empire, one brick at a time. I was solving real problems for people, and I was doing it on my own terms. The freedom was exhilarating. I wasn't just surviving. I was starting to thrive. As the business grew, I needed help. The thought of hiring my first employee was almost as scary as starting the business itself. What if I made a bad choice? What if I couldn't afford to pay them? But I knew I couldn't do it all alone. I looked for people who shared my passion, people who were hungry and had something to prove, just like me. I didn't care about fancy resumes. I cared about grit and attitude. I built a small, dedicated team. We were nimble, we were fast, and we genuinely cared about our clients. We were everything my old company wasn't. We made decisions in hours, not weeks. We listened to customer feedback and implemented changes immediately. We were the scrappy startup that the big, slow corporation couldn't keep up with. The turning point came about 2 years in. We were at an industry conference, and I saw my old boss across the room. For a second, that old feeling of insecurity washed over me. But then I looked at my team, our booth bustling with interested clients, and I felt a surge of pride. Later that day, one of my old company's biggest clients approached our booth. They were frustrated with the slow service and lack of innovation they were getting. They had heard about us, this new company making waves. We had a long conversation, and a few weeks later, they switched their contract to us. It was a massive win, not because we stole a client, but because we had earned their business by offering a superior product and service. We had won by being better. That day, my old boss came over to our booth. He had this strange look on his face, a mix of surprise and, I think, a little bit of respect. He shook my hand and said, "I've been hearing your name a lot. Looks like you're doing well for yourself." I just smiled and said, "We're just getting started." There was no bitterness. No, I told you so. The success was the statement. We hadn't just survived. We had built something that was actively taking market share from the very company that had cast me aside. The best revenge isn't being angry. It's being so successful that they have to watch you win. Today, my business is bigger than I ever dreamed it could be. We have a real office now, no more apartment corner. We have a team of incredible people, and we're continuing to grow and innovate. And that company that fired me, they've tried to acquire us twice now. We politely declined. Why would I sell my dream back to the people who didn't believe in me in the first place? Looking back, getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the painful push I needed to bet on myself. It forced me to discover a strength and resilience I never knew I had. It taught me that sometimes, a closed door isn't an ending. It's a redirection to a much better path, a path you have to build yourself. So if you're going through something similar, if you've been knocked down, felt discarded or underestimated, let my story be a reminder. Don't let someone else's decision define your worth. That anger, that frustration, turn it into fuel. Use it to build something. Your greatest setback might just be the setup for your greatest comeback. It won't be easy, but taking control of your own destiny is the most rewarding journey you can ever take. Trust me. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. I'll see you in the next one.